And then, point 9, don't be possessive. Of course, your child is your child, with all that that means. Huh? Of course, you're legally responsible for your child, I mean, up to a point. Huh? But don't develop too much of an attitude of, well, this is my child. Huh? Don't develop the attitude that no one else is allowed to speak to my child. No one is allowed to tell my child off, if the child is behaving. In a healthy, positive community, it should be possible for any adult to tell off any child who is misbehaving, anywhere. Unfortunately, in our society at present, in this country, certainly in London, this is not possible. One sees it happening in India, for instance. One doesn't see it here. Here people will tend to resent anybody interfering, as they would call it, with their child, telling their child off, or correcting their child, or reprimanding their child verbally. But in the case of Buddhist parents, they obviously shouldn't have this sort of attitude. Partly because as Buddhists we try not to be attached. At least we try to reduce our attachments. But in the case of Buddhist parents, well, we're part of a Buddhist community. There are other Buddhists who are fellow Buddhists. So we shouldn't mind if a fellow Buddhist thinks it appropriate just to tick off our child for some little misdemeanor. Supposing the child is, visiting the centre with mother or father, and while mother or father are doing something inside, child is racketing around the centre. Well, any fellow Buddhist should be able to say, "Come on, Tommy, don't make such a noise." Huh? Any fellow Buddhist should be able to say that without the parent resenting it or feeling offended. And of course, a very important aspect of non-possessiveness is letting your children go when the time comes. When the time comes for them to go forth into the wider world, maybe to get a job, maybe to settle down in some particular way, but in any case, to leave home, to leave the parental nest. You should have brought them up in such a way that they go forth freely, easily, without feelings of guilt, with self-confidence, and with you feeling, yes, a little sad, that's inevitable, but on the whole quite pleased and happy, even perhaps if you'd admit it, a wee bit relieved to see them go. Of course, nowadays, some children, even when they're quite big, have to be encouraged, to leave the nest. They don't always want to leave, or sometimes they want to have it both ways. They want to have their own little nest out there somewhere, but a nest, back home to which they can retreat, in case of need. But yes, bring up your children in such a way that they can go forth into the wider world when the time comes, and yourself be very willing and ready, even happy, to let them go, and to put, therefore, the whole relationship onto a new basis. I remember in this connection there's a very interesting little verse in the Manusmriti. It is with regard to fathers and sons, but probably applies to mothers and sons and mothers and daughters and fathers and daughters too. But the verse says, when your son is 16, cease to regard him as a son and treat him as a friend. And that becomes, of course, all the more easy, all the more possible, because, when the child goes forth, leaves home. So when your son comes to see you, or your daughter comes to see you, but it's not your child returning, to the nest for a bit of comfort. Take it more as, a friend, a good friend, whom you've known for quite a long time, coming to see you, and to talk, and communicate. So, don't be possessive, that's point number 9.